Kenyans choose a new president on Monday in a closely fought election that has divided the East African nation and raised fears of a repeat of the bloodshed that followed the tightly contested race 5 years ago. Tonight, we'll take a closer look at the election that is set to reverberate all through the fast-developing East African region. Are we hearing the drums of war or celebration in a country of almost 50 tribes and 14.3 million registered voters? This is Focus on Kenya. Rival tribe members wielding machetes, knives and bows and arrows butchered more than 1,200 people after the disputed 2007 vote, shattering Kenya's reputation as one of the continent's most stable democracies and dealing a heavy blow to East Africa's biggest economy, from which it is only now recovering. Though the government has spent 5 years trying to rebuild confidence, yet this year's race is haunted by the past. One of the top two candidates, 51-year-old Uhuru Kenyatta, has been indicted by the International Criminal Court, ICC, for instigating the violence after the 2007 race. And tribal loyalties again largely determine who backs Kenyatta or his main rival, 68-year-old Raila Odinga. The United States and other major Western donors are watching warily. The Western media is not giving this election a chance, going by their doomsday headlines. Reuters says Kenya braces for a repeat of election bloodshed. Foreign policy, vote M for murder. The Voice of America, ahead of Kenyan elections, some take precautions, and the CNN is saying high stakes in Kenya's critical election. Al Jazeera says elections to test Kenya's tribal divide. Joining me to look into these and other issues bordering on Monday's elections are Joseph Ochieno, Africa expert and analyst; Elizabeth Kangete, Councillor, London Borough of Barking and Dagenham; and Julius Umbaluto, broadcaster and political analyst. Let me start by asking all our guests their prediction about the elections. Let me start with Elizabeth in Kenyan colors.
Well, it's really not my role to predict, but it's a tight race. It's quite tight, and at the moment I think it's a two-horse race. You know, it's obvious, you can tell. But we just wait for the voters to go out on Monday, and they'll make the decision. But I know very, very well that it's a two-horse race, and I can't tell who's going to go, but both of them, any one of them could go in, and we accept whoever goes in.
Okay, Joseph, do you think there will be acceptance? Any prospect of violence?
I really hope so, because as you suggested at the introduction, Kenya really is the star nation of the region. The post-election violence of 2007 was an extreme disappointment to many of us. I think I was probably one of the leading commentators inside this side of the world, crying with Kenyans and Africans. And also happened to be one of those people who in 2002 wrote severally saying that it was Kenya had helped to kill the Western media and portrait of Africa, that it's impossible to have free and fair elections, and that it was impossible for us to have elections on issues. And in 2002, Kenya, by and large, voted on issues. They had a decent election, and we had pains to tell the rest of the world that Africa had arrived. So 2007 was a shock to me and to many of us. I think with some of the issues that you suggest, it is possible that the key players in Kenya will think again and think twice and persuade their camps to play civil and to play lawyer. And just a quick observation, as we understand it, not so long ago, President Kibaki issued a statement, which is probably long overdue, persuading Kenyans to play calm and play responsible. And I hope really they heed to that, because it's in their interest, in the interest of the continent.
Okay, Julius, 2013, 58th anniversary of Kenya. You think we should shame the Western media this time around in Kenya?
I tell you what, I've been in the media for almost over 30 years or something. What is actually abnormal sells media quite a lot. What is normal doesn't sell a lot. But I'll tell you what has been normal in Kenya. We have seen presidential candidates, all of them coming together, repenting in the public, asking each one if they offended each other to forgive each other. You cannot discount that. That means a lot. And also the fact that, you know, as we stand right now, Today, President Kibaki issued a statement, still reminding Kenyans, keep peace when you are voting, is your appointment with destiny, which means a lot. So there's a lot of, for me, my vote goes to optimism, and that optimism is drawn from what I've seen in Kenya right now, and there's a lot of hope that the election will be peaceful, there will be someone winning, doesn't matter who. All the presidential candidates are Kenyans, so it doesn't matter who. So the gloom and doom kind of prediction, to me, it doesn't hold a lot of water.
Okay, with the optimism from Julius, let's look at the presidential candidates. Last Monday, the presidential candidates had their last chance of convincing the electorate to hand them the mantle of leadership of East Africa's biggest economy. They touched on economy, corruption, tribalism, and land. Let's hear the views of the frontline candidates on the sensitive issue of land.
The Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned the fact that land is not an issue, is an issue, that we have these extensive tracts of land, half provinces. Today my sister's talking about half the country. He has been in charge of this government for the last 5 years as Prime Minister. The Minister of Lands was appointed by him. To date, there is nothing that they have put forward to prove those justifications.
In defense of my brother Uhuru Kenyatta, he was just an innocent inheritor. He did not commit the original sin. And I think the country should sympathize with him. But the issue is that there was a betrayal of the freedom fighters, the original freedom, the struggle. Those who sacrificed most were completely abandoned by the leadership. And that's the reason why this issue has remained a contentious issue for all this time.
Okay, Elizabeth, we just saw Kenyatta and Odinga there. Your reaction to the issue of land, which has become a contentious issue in Kenya?
Well, just like the two of them said, in Kenya, land remains and it is a contentious issue. I honestly sympathize with Kenyatta because he's just innocent, you know, because since the time of independence, this land, whichever ways his parents or his dad, the former president, gained this land, he's just inherited this. But there needs to be, you know, with the judicial system now, and I understand there is the Land Commission, they need to look into this. But at the moment, we really should not look at that issue as the main issue, as the point of the debate at the moment. But it is there. It is a very, very, very difficult issue, land in Kenya, because you find the prime areas are owned by individuals, a minority. But there's vast pieces of land in Kenya which are arable, which I believe should be allocated which belong to the government. There's a lot of land which is not in use at the moment. Okay, so instead of just focusing on that prime piece of land which maybe is owned by an individual, I think the government needs to look at the massive pieces owned by the government and get the people placed into those pieces of land.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Julius, I want you to look at the issue of land as an electioneering campaign issue. Do we have to get to that level to sort out land issues at presidential campaigns?
It isn't their fault, the presidential candidates. Land has always been controversial since time immemorial in Kenya.
Yeah, but should it be, what's happening? A catalyst to win elections?
Definitely so, because you know what's happening right now. The new constitution talks about historical injustices, and these historical injustices is pegged on land as one of the key factors. There are other factors, but land seems to be the key factor, driving force. Within the new constitution, if you look into the way things are, of course, there was a former government commissioned Dungu report, which came up and kind of identified pieces of land and the issues surrounding them. I'll give you an example. During colonial era, when the English white settlers went to Kenya, some of them went to Kenya and they took land from the natives. They used to call them natives, so I'm not calling them natives, they are Kenyans now. Yeah. But they were called natives. And this land, they would take the land and they would kind of put over, I don't know how many years, almost in perpetuity, the ownership of the land. But now even the government is talking about lease, which they have limited to, I think, over 900 years, you know. So it's also supposed to be also limited. Now, to give you a clearer picture of how this is touching on Kenyatta's family, during colonial era, the white settlers took the most fertile lands in central province of Kenya. And when they left, during, according to colonial documents, the Kenyatta government got money from the British government to buy off the land from the white settlers and also give it to Kenyans. That kind of allocation was controversial, and therefore you find a situation whereby in Taita Taveta, which is the controversial issue we are talking about now, of Kenyatta family owns 30,000 acres of land. Some of, in that particular area, although it's not where Kenyatta comes from, people are displaced. And since this last presidential debate, now we have the Taitas now saying this land was acquired illegally, we need it back. Kenyatta family says they gave 4,000 acres of land. Where is the truth? I can't purport to know it.
Okay,
But
let me
is a
move quickly to
crucial issue.
Joseph. Does it go beyond land? Because I have documents to suggest that Prime Minister Odinga's father in the 60s lost to President Kenyatta. So could it be that it's still like rivalry from almost 50 years ago?
It's a combination of both. And quite clearly, you're right. Actually, the three leading contenders in the campaigns, all of them really bear their allegiance from their parents. Raila, Kenyatta, and indeed
Uhuru. Jomo Kenyatta.
No, is it Mudavadi?
Mudavadi.
Mudavadi,
oh
yes.
yes.
But beyond that, there is what you would probably call godfather politics in Kenya, which is a shame. I think let's go through this election successfully without violence. That's the most important thing. But beyond that, whoever actually leads Kenya needs to be actually actively radical. It is going to be in the interest of the Kenyans, it's going to be in the interest of the region, it's going to be in the interest of Africa. But when you come down specifically, and so partly because of that, some of that historical thing has actually entrenched the nationality politics of Uhuru, Kenyatta versus Oginga. Oginga did it fair for Kenyatta the other time round. And then now Luo versus predominantly an element of the Kikuyus, as it were. But that is much more on the surface thing, because in Kenyan political terms is more than that. But when you come specifically to land, I think land is an historical injustice across the continent. Land is a historical injustice in Kenya, which must be resolved. Land in Kenya, land in Zimbabwe, land in South Africa, land in Namibia. Those 4 African countries, we can't pretend that the peoples have not been given raw deals. The issue then is who is of the likely candidates is likely to radically simply say, no, we need to tear these things apart.
Yeah, but it's like we are having issues with Kenyatta being involved as well.
No, there are 2 elements to it. One, that the Kenyattas benefited, which I think, like Raila said, is fair enough. Uhuru is a beneficiary in a way which you can't blame him on. But it is up to the current crop of leadership of Kenya, including Uhuru, to look back and simply say that whatever we got on the table is wrong, we need to have it overhauled. And I think, like Julia said, because the Constitution actually talks about it, Kenyans need to be able to overhaul this. We cannot talk about land in Zimbabwe and we don't talk about land in Kenya. And we cannot talk about land in South Africa and we don't talk about land in Kenya. I found it extremely shocking as a Ugandan going to neighboring Kenya and finding that Kenyans are actually literally landless in their own countries. And they're Kenyans with acres and acres and acres upon acres of land. It's absolutely wrong. Land is at the heart of conflicts on the continent. Land is at the heart of conflicts in the Holy Land. There's no reason why we don't have this resolved. Unfortunately, of course, now that when elections comes, obviously people begin to pick up many issues and then we'll pick this one to run on. But
let's quickly pick up on another contentious issue. That's tribalism. And some of the presidential candidates talked about it last Monday. So let's check out what they had to say for us.
Let me say this. Our Jubilee platform is a platform that has been built on issues. If you have followed and listened to the speeches that we have made with my running mate, the Honorable William Ruto, throughout the country, We have emphasized the need for us to be able to focus on the real issues that affect our people: unemployment, poverty, the social infrastructure, the need for us to be able to pull together as Kenyans, the need for us to be able to be united and understanding that the best way to deal with our problems is not for leaders to be pulling apart, but working together. Despite our own personal differences, we need to pull together. Now, it is indeed true that numbers are being bandied around. But those numbers, if you look, are largely also being bandied around by the political analysts who are out there. Just as there's language that is also...
But would you admit, Honorable Kenyatta, that your campaign revolves around the Kikuyu and Kalenjin communities?
I would completely disagree. If you would look at where we have had all our rallies so far, I have not had a single rally yet in Central Province since I was nominated. We have been campaigning in the Coast Province. We have been campaigning up in Meru. We were in Rift Valley the other day. We're moving on to Lower Eastern, where we intend to be. So we've been up to Kuria. So we are actually conducting a national campaign, a campaign that is aimed at bringing all Kenyans together.
Kenyans must come from certain regions. They cannot be invented from the moon. So people come together for a particular purpose. Like now you have got CORD. It's a coalition of the willing. People who have come together because of certain values that they share together. In 2002, that was the third time that the opposition was going for an election. Remember, we lost in 92, we lost also again in 97. So in 2002, we decided to come together and rally behind one person. That's why I said Kibaki Tosha. That was to unite the people of Kenya, to unite the people. Said the Luos could not vote for Kibaki because it was a Kikuyu, and no Luo can vote for a Kikuyu. I said Kikuyus are Kenyans, and there was never a war between Luos and Kikuyus. And I managed to campaign for Kibaki, that Kibaki got majority of votes. You need to know that James Orengo, a Luo, was also a presidential candidate in 1992.
That was 2002.
2002.
That was 2002, Honorable Odinga. Yes. But isn't it true that in the 2005 and 2000 votes?
Well, let's take a quick break now. It's still focused on Kenya. When we come back, we'll talk more on tribalism, and also the people out there in Kenya will be reacting to the debate. Stay with us. It's still focused on Kenya.